Today we're talking about why you shouldn't be repeating the same programs over and over again. One of the most common questions we seem to get asked by people that are early on in their journey is, what should I do after I finish this? I think I'm just going to repeat the same program, and it is almost always the wrong thing to do. We're going to tell you why.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
What's up, everyone? My name is Yanni Burmeister. I've got the orange glasses on today, so we mean business. To my left is Phil White, aka Switched On Physio, ready to take all of your online physiotherapy inquiries. And across the table is Brad. Behind the mixture is Richie. We are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System. Guys, we turn driven people into athletes every single day. It's what we do. It's our purpose. And if you want to know how, you can download our blueprints. Links are in the description, or you can go to unitygym.com. What's up, everyone?
Yeah, ready for a good discussion. This is one of those ones when we were coming up with what the topic should be for today and for this week. This one just keeps coming up over and over again, so I think it's important. If you've heard this before, but you're still asking the question, you haven't heard it enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It fits in with my kind of sports background and what, training for kind of elite sports is like, but it also fits really nicely into my physio approach now. It's all about, progressing people. So
yeah, that's right.
And look, to frame it, the one that we get asked the question about the most is the foundations program, right? People do the foundations program, either just phase one or all three phases, and they get to the end and they say, hey, I just finished this, I'm thinking about doing it again. And it's the wrong thing. It's a real misunderstanding of the way that the body works. Like the way that the whole purpose of training when you lift weights and when you do things is to create a response in the body called adaptation, where I remember hearing this analogy, which I really, really liked. If a tree, if the sunlight is directly above the tree will grow up. But if another bigger tree comes and grows over that tree, the tree will start growing sideways to adapt to get to that sunlight. And you can see that in nature all the time. And the body works the same way. The body will adapt to the stimulus that it's given. So what happens is you create a stimulus, which is something that causes adaptation. The body adapts. And if you don't change that stimulus, the body stops adapting. So the initial result that you got, you won't get again when you do the same program. You have to continue to change the stimulus for adaptation to occur.
Yeah, 100%. And there's many ways that you can stimulate the body. And of course, the most obvious is weight, how much weight or resistance you move. That's what we do in the gym. We're either moving our body weight or an external load. And, you can do the same exercise over and over and repeatedly increase the weight, and you will adapt, but you plateau quite quickly, and you don't adapt nearly as much as if you sort of manipulate multiple variables. And the second most obvious is to change up the exercise that you're doing, So if you're doing one exercise all of the time and slowly, progressively overloading with different load, then you're going to get a little result. But if you are undulating between a few variations of that movement, you're going to get a much better result.
And just on if you're only progressing the weight variable, like there's just, for the type of people we work with here, we want to build athletic bodies, and it's not just about lifting the most amount of weight. So you've got to stimulate your body in ways that are going to, be good at strength, endurance, as well as power, as well as strength, and then also bringing in fitness and mobility. So when you're just working on that, when you're just hammering that same program with just changing one variable, you're really missing out on giving the wide range of responses that, is what makes the body able to do all these exciting athletic things.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, another way to look at this stuff as well is that barbells are what creates the greatest amount of strength in the body. And, all the top strength coaches in the world are getting people to train with barbells. So when you talk about the UMS Foundations program, it is a phenomenal program to prepare you to do the more advanced stuff that we want people doing. It was never intended, and it shouldn't be used as something that you just repeat over and over and over again. It's a preparation program. It gets you ready, and then you move on to the big kids stuff, which is where we want everybody to be.
Yeah, and just to be clear about why barbells are so good, it's like not some magical property that they exude out when you get them on top of your shoulders.
That's not true. They are magical.
As
Barbells
soon
are
as you
magical.
touch them and pick them up, you go. Zzz.
But I think this is a really good reason to talk about why this stuff works. And with barbells, it's because we can really control and progressively overload to a level that you just can't get to with dumbbells. If you have dumbbells, you have to often holding them, grip strength becomes an issue, whereas with barbells you can keep progressing that weight variable, and you can also get pretty funky with power and speed stuff as well, where it's just
And also because of the way that it creates the rigidity in the body as well, isn't it, with a barbell? Like when you grip onto a barbell, your whole body tightens up. You could use the example of a dumbbell chest press versus a barbell bench press.
Yeah.
Grab a couple of dumbbells. It doesn't matter how good you are. As soon as you get them up, you feel that wobble in your arms, and that has its benefit. There's a reason why you do that. But if you want to get really strong, which you should want to do, if you're lifting weights, you should be wanting to get really strong. Then you don't want to be lifting with dumbbells all the time. You want to get some barbells and get some weight.
So
going.
it all comes down to overload, a new stimulus.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. And how do we do that? We do that through I'm going to use the word Rad hates, a myriad of different variables. The really obvious one, which we've discussed already, is load. The second most obvious is the exercise selection. Third is the amount of volume, and volume can vary between the selection of exercises on the same muscle groups, the amount of sets, reps, that you choose to do in the workout, and the amount of workouts that you choose to do in a microcycle, which is usually a week. And then you've got recovery variables. You can manipulate the amount of recovery between sets. You can manipulate the amount of recovery between workouts, and you can even manipulate the amount of recovery between microcycles or mesocycles. And Alex Seabrook, who's about to endeavour on the super accumulation program that I do a couple of times a year, is going to learn what it's like or what it means to have to manipulate recovery between mesocycles, because he's going to do a mesocycle of only 2 weeks of training and then have to have 5 days of zero training to recover and let that stimulus take hold and take shape. So there's different ways that you can manipulate recovery. And then the last one, which is the least obvious, well, there's actually two more, is manipulating the tempo of movement. And we can do things like pause reps. We can pause at the least advantageous part of the stretch reflex shortening cycle and make it really difficult by eliminating inertia. We can do super slow eccentrics. We can do explosive reps. We can do constant tension reps. There's all sorts of different things we can do manipulating the tempo. And then the final and most technical is manipulating intra and inter-set overload variables, where we start to link different things together. And this is where I guess scientific programming, strength and conditioning really starts to take shape, is when we start to do things like supersets, cluster sets, drop sets, constant tension sets, mechanical drop sets, giant sets, circuits, all sorts of Tabata, all sorts of different things like that. And it's, this is the thing, like if you continually repeat the same program, you're missing out on this, it's like sort of not like you're just missing out on so much of the amazing literature and the amazing stuff that we have, the tools. What programming is all about and how you get the best results is, don't get overwhelmed by it, but over time build a toolbox that you've got at your disposal that you can choose the right tool for the right time and the right job. And that's what, I think that's what the UMS is why it's so good, is because that's what our goal is, to teach you guys.
Well, I think it's also, what I'd say to add to what you've just said is, I think you're missing the point. You're really missing the point of what you should be doing when you're training, which is you should be continually challenging yourself. And people come in and do that UMS Foundations program and they have this revelation. It happens all the time. We get people talking about how after their first 6 weeks they just feel unbelievable and they can't believe how good it is, and same thing as when people finish it. We've got all these 5-star reviews from it, and so people think, wow, it was that amazing, I'm going to repeat it. But we've that Foundations program is truly amazing for many reasons, but one of them, because when you're a beginner or when you're new to it, is that we've kept it simple. And we've made it very, very basic and straightforward as to what it is that you should be doing. But you need to move out of that phase, and you do need to start moving into that, adding some of those more variables that you were just speaking about there. And you can look at on the other end of the spectrum. I was talking about this in the class this morning that I was teaching. If you go to the average gym, like big chain gym where people aren't getting coached unless they hire a personal trainer, you can see the other end of the spectrum all the time, where you can see buffheads that really have no idea what they're doing, and they're trying to do all of those giant sets and massive overload techniques when they haven't even got the basics down pat. And the idea of those things that Yanni was talking about right at the end there, he left those right to the end, because that's when you've exhausted all other options, and but you still need to create a stimulus that causes adaptation. So you start bringing in these really complex ways of programming with inter set and workout overload techniques, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be slowly working on something that is a little bit more than what the last thing was.
Yep.
It's a really important thing.
And that's
to do.
what.
It's an important
That's
journey.
why the method is coined progressive overload.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it starts to become pretty clear when you start utilizing this. That's why testing is so valuable. Is when you start, doing any type of weights training or gym training, like. Each time you turn up to testing week, you're going to be better. Like you're just going to get really quick adaptations, and then it'll start to become quite clear after you've done a few testing cycles that, okay, I'm not quite progressing in the same way. And once you've had that real good foundation and getting those sort of beginner gains, that's when you think, okay, do I need to complicate this and start to bring in these things? So it's just such a good example of why the testing side of things is key. So.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing right now at Unity Gym and in the UMS online coaching. This week is testing week. And, for those of you, when you finish, if you're watching this and this is speaking to you because you're sitting here repeating the same programs, or you're wondering what you should do when you finish the foundations program, you move to the progressions program and you do testing week. And testing week will tell you this is how to create something that's much more customized to your needs, because the foundations program is a generic program, and it's generic for many reasons. We've done it because it is, for the majority of people, it is what the majority of people need in order to get better, and it's also generic to keep it simple, because at the earlier levels there's a real danger of overwhelm, and we've seen it a lot. We've seen people get overwhelmed with what it is that we teach, and if that causes you to pull back and think, oh, I can't do this, this is too complex for me, then that's a bad thing, and we've failed you. So that's
want to build up that confidence that you know what you're doing, and that really brings a lot of power. And then when you start to get creative about how you're going to progress, it should really align with your goals. And if you haven't gone back to the first 8 episodes of the show, to really get your goals straight, because then you can start to, I think, all of these overload principles and weight variables start to make sense when you have kind of an end in mind. So for me at the moment, I'm doing a lot of beach volleyball, and for that I need a good vertical jump in the sand and a bit of strength endurance for running around the sand for a couple hours. So now my programming really matches that, where I'm starting to get down to sort of lower rep explosive sets, and then finishing off with some higher rep strength endurance sort of stuff. So you can it starts to make a bit of sense about how you choose these variables, because at the beginning when you're just getting into this stuff, it's like, well, I don't know what to do. Like there's just so much out there. And then, so that's just, I think a key thing is to keep your goal in mind when you're starting to get into the fancy programming. And that's why you need to change.
100%. Now, we couldn't have planned this better, because
I was just about to say that. Can I answer this one?
Vinny Brown has asked us the best question. First of all, no, it's not Bono. Quack. These are my blue block. I had a flare up with my eye this morning. My bloody cornea tore again when I woke up at 5:30 this morning, and so I'm a bit sensitive to the bright light, and it just looks better than black glasses on the show. But quite frankly, I'd prefer to wear blacks. Vinny Brown, I've built some context, and then I'll let Rad dive into this because I know he's chomping at the bit. Vinny, we'll pay you your $50 later for asking that question. That is the most perfect way that I wanted to lead this conversation. Hi guys, how would you apply progression to stretching? With weights, it seems pretty straightforward. With stretching, not so much. Well, first and foremost, what I'll say before Rad dives in is, it is a lot more obvious with weights, because you can progressively overload by adding load and then manipulating the other variables that we've discussed there. But surprisingly, people still get it wrong. They still stay doing the same handful of movements, and there's a psychology behind that is, staying in your comfort zone. Once you've got a routine that feels like it's producing a result for you and you're comfortable with it, then you just want to put that on repeat. And unfortunately, it's not a very good way to train your body. One reason is because it produces overuse injury when you're not. Think of, one of the things that I really liked, the analogy that I really liked, one of my friends, Ben Pekulski, said to me one time when we were training together was, think about changing the exercise selection like rotating the tires on your car. When you're doing the same movements over and over and over again, you do get wear and tear to your joints and your body doing the same stuff over and over and over again, just like your
I'd
tires.
like to just kind of change that where I'm not sure that's entirely right. Like, not necessarily wear and tear, but you're certainly going to cause a very much kind of, well, how do I say this? An inability to do anything outside of what you're practicing, and that makes your body more fragile because you haven't exposed it to a wide variety. So movement itself is not necessarily wear and tear, but certain, I don't know. I just want to kind of get that message right, because I really don't want people to take away if I keep on just doing a squat, then I'm going to have bad hips. That's just not right.
Fair enough. But think of it like rotating the tires on your car. If you continually do the same thing over and over again, it's going to have a negative impact on your performance, and it's going to make you more fragile. And you want to give it that variety.
And you know what, Vinny? We are literally, as per popular demand, because a lot of people asked for it when I questioned it, we are making a version 2 of the 18-minute stretching routine for this exact reason this week, and it'll be ready this weekend. And the reason why is because, yes, when you apply progression to stretching, you will start to see improvement. And at the basic level, we've created a couple of programs that have, that are designed to be a little bit more challenging than the last one. And within the Mobility Masterclass, you have all of the different phases in there. But for the one that the most people have, the 18-minute stretching routine, it has been the same for people for many years. And I don't do that program anymore. I do something that has evolved for me. And so you'll see what that's like.
That was a terrible answer to his question, by the way.
What?
Yeah. Okay, let me go, Vinny. With stretching, you are limited. Unlike strength training, it's a lot harder to progressively overload because you're not always loading with weights, and you know that there's less variables that you can manipulate. So the most important variable to manipulate with stretching to progressively overload is the selection of movements. Stretching and flexibility is so very much about your brain adapting and starting to feel comfortable in those end ranges. And what happens is that you will get comfortable in the same position reasonably quickly. It doesn't happen as quickly as strength training, the adaptation, I think, with flexibility. And the progression is not as linear. You can't expect a result every time you turn up because it's so much about your history and what you've exposed your body to in the past. But the most important thing to change up with flexibility training is the selection of movement. And I'll share a story, an experience I had in the last couple of years. I've been working extremely hard to lengthen my hamstrings and to get a better pike stretch where I can, one day maybe get my chin to my knees or toes. They call it a chin to toe stretch, which is requiring a lot of hamstring flexibility, but is very, very practical when you want to do press handstands and gymnastics and calisthenics movements. And I was banging away at a loaded hamstring stretch that we do in the program, which is a fantastic stretch where I'm literally doing a pike with dumbbells in my hands standing. And I just hit a wall. I just wasn't getting much of a result anymore. And a friend of ours made a suggestion to go to a standing straddle stretch where I stand on a couple of boxes and in a pancake position, in a straddle position, and hold the weights in the middle, maybe a dumbbell or a barbell or something like that, or a kettlebell, and just allow it to pull me down there. And just by making that one change, I got a huge leap in my progress in my hamstrings. Now the hamstring stretch was not just stretching the hammies, it was stretching the adductors as well, but it still produced a really, really good result with my hamstrings. And then recently I went to just a straight up chin to toe sort of elevated foot stretch where I'm flossing the nerves, and I got another big breakthrough, you know. And so with stretching, it's very much about how you can periodize the movements themselves, because we don't have the nice variable of load and, you know, volume you can definitely manipulate, and recovery, yeah, you can manipulate recovery. We've found that actually giving yourself a little bit more recovery between intense stretching workouts works really well, but it's not as straightforward as you say as strength training. So unlike having this amazing array of dumbbells that you can always use, or barbells and things like that, which of course you can when we're doing loaded stretching, you can increase the load, but you very quickly cap it out with stretching. Like you get to a point where it's sort of dangerous if you continually add weight. I think that's the type of answer he was looking for.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I hope that helps.
I like that. Variability in movement, because as sort of Yanni just briefly mentioned there, with the, you know, going into that forward flexion at the hip, like your hamstrings are the main muscles that do that, but also your adductor magnus, which is the largest of the adductor muscles, like it plays a role in that extension as well of the hip. So yeah, by getting all the muscles around it and also putting your joints into different positions, you're gonna facilitate more movement. So I like it. Yeah. And yeah, it comes down to what we were talking about before as well, with, you know, that when you have a more exposure to different ways of doing things, and your body is now spent some time with variability, than if you go out into the real world and you have to, like, you know, bend down to do some gardening or whatever, and you're sort of in a, you know, Cossack squat, sort of bend forward, like that's the kind of situation where it's like your body's like, hey, I've done this before, you know, this isn't a problem for me before. But if you've only done, you know, your middle splits training separately to doing your, you know, forward bend, then you haven't kind of explored the mid-range between the two. So it's just such a good idea to expose your body to as many different positions as you can, because then you'll be ready for it in real life.
In real life, that's right. It
we
becomes very
rarely
functional.
work in like just set planes.
Yeah, and back to what Rad's saying with the 18-minute routine, you know, this is all of our stretching programs should be. You should be progressing from one to the other, and that's what we're trying to do. And unfortunately, in the past, it's created a little bit of complexity for people, because people then try and combine programs and sort of come up with some sort of super program, but that's not the idea. And this is what we were talking about last week. The idea is that these programs should become tools in your toolbox. And so when we create the new version 2.0 of the 18-minute stretch routine that we're hoping to try and get done this week, it doesn't replace the original. It becomes the next stepping stone, the next milestone for those of you who have nailed that 18-minute routine or have been practicing it for a few months now. You guys have the amazing luxury of being able to adapt and then progress quickly. We unfortunately have to design these bloody things, and that takes a long time. So to give you an example, to build some context, when we created the 18-minute routine, we did it for a year. And it wasn't until we really plateaued and all of us were just going, well, we're not getting any better, we need to come up with a better solution, that we then created a different program and then started doing that. But for you guys who are coming along and just discovering Unity Gym or the Unified Movement System now, oh my God. And I've seen this with our members. Rad and I and Richie talk about this all the time. It's kind of embarrassing because our members are progressing faster than we did, you know, and that's because they just have this roadmap laid out in front of them of the journey that we've gone on. But our journey is far longer because we're having to do the discovery and the experimentation and the tweaking and the program design along the way, whereas our members just get to absorb it all, you know.
A bit more efficient, hey?
Yeah, that's right.
No R&D needed.
And we're now getting to the point where I'm literally looking at members in the gym who came a year ago who were way behind my level of flexibility and are now starting to overtake me, you know, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta get my game on. This is getting embarrassing, but you know, that's just the way it goes when you're laying out such a great program. And you know, we may have ragged on the Foundations program a little bit at the start. We certainly didn't intend to. It is such a good program, and that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that it's such a good program that people just do it and feel great and then want to go back and do it again. Yeah. But the problem is you're not going to get the same result the second time around, you know. And I would dare say, and this came off the back of, I think, Connor's question. Was it Connor? Connor O'Shea from the online group.
Well, I don't know what
he was one of the people that asked, I've got a couple of little niggling injuries. Should I go back and do the foundations again? And my answer 9 times out of 10, Connor, for you and anyone thinking this is if it's within like 6 to 12 months, I'd say no. There's so many tools in that toolbox of the UMS.
For somebody like Connor, I wouldn't say ever go back and do that. What you would do is, at his level, you assess which, I asked him what his injuries were, or what he's experiencing, and it's all unilateral stuff to do with one side. So that doesn't mean you go back and do the whole foundations program again. There's so many ways you can go about that, and a simple solution would be you can just do some unilateral programming for your lower body, but you're still using the progressions programming principles. So you can just do, instead of squats for a cycle, do split squats. And you could even do 3 cycles of that. You could go front foot, elevated, flat foot, and then Bulgarian split squats. You would do high step ups. You could do back racked high step ups and then front racked high. There's all these different things, but it's not go back and do the most basic stuff you did before. There's different ways to think about things.
And look, don't get me wrong. Don't get Rad wrong. Sorry, the foundations program is not basic. It's like most people are seriously challenged by it, and that's even very fit people. But it's just about doing the same stimulus again. You know, you're not going to get the same adaptation. And this is another thing, specific for Connor. He's got niggles in his body. He's complaining of a hip issue and an arm issue. You know, going and doing unilateral may not actually be the answer for him at the moment, because unilateral is going to load that hip even more. So it might be that he just needs to regress the weight or the load or the volume of the intensity of his squats or the range. That's exactly right, you know. And a perfect example, myself, I recently hurt my arm quite badly. Yes, I could have gone back and started doing unilateral because that arm was going to be really let down in comparison to the other arm, but I didn't. I just did a partial range pull-up, and it's sorting itself out. You know, there's a really good example. Of course, I had to deload it. I was doing 30 kilo, 40 kilo strapped to my body pull-ups before that, and I went back to doing body weight. And I started by doing a really shortened range. For any of you on the podcast, I'm demonstrating a really shortened range pull-up. And now I've progressed back to doing full range pull-ups, and then slowly over the next couple of weeks I'll progress to doing weighted pull-ups again, loaded pull-ups again, and I've changed the grip from supinated to pronated. I'm going to do a semi-supinated grip next. So yeah, look, it's not always the case that you regress right back to doing the beginner. The only time I would say you should is if you've taken a lot of time off training. Like, let's say hypothetically you travel around the world for 6 months.
Or you've been in lockdown from a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And
that's another really great example.
Why the foundations went back on sale a while ago.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So, and Connor and anyone on our UMS online coaching group, make sure you tune in this Friday at 9:15 a.m. straight after this show, when we're going to be going live to you guys to be giving you some very specific coaching about this stuff. So I know that we have Joshua Charles Dorr, who's going to be chiming in so that we can give him some coaching on his questions. And Connor, I've asked you to tune in as well so that we can give you some coaching as well. That's where we're going to...
Anyone who's on the, online coaching group, make the most of it.
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, that's right.
And, we're going to be talking all about the assessment week and how you use those results to create your customized program. We're probably going to continue with this topic for this week, I think, because it is something that a lot of people really need to get a deeper understanding of, and we need to keep banging this drum. So tune in tomorrow. We'll go deeper on this, get your questions in, and we'll answer them as soon as we can.
Yeah, 100%.
Have a good day, everyone.
Have a great day, guys.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to our channel and make sure you click the notification bell so you know when our weekly videos are uploaded. Now, the best thing for you to do if you want to stay connected with us and get free online coaching is to join our private Facebook group. It's called the UMS Movement Mastermind, and we go live daily where we answer our members' questions. It's very interactive because you can post questions while we're live and we interact with you on the show. You can also upload videos or pictures of yourself with any movements, any stretches, strength training movements, calisthenics, weightlifting, anything that you're struggling with, and we'll critique you, give you feedback, let you know how you can get better. It's a really valuable resource. It allows a lot of communication with us and also our senior tribe members. You'll get answers very, very quickly, and it's absolutely free. So jump on Facebook, search for UMS Movement Mastermind and join now. Until next time, have a great day.